Hello, I'm Tim Harris. This is Julie Harris, and this is Real Estate Coaching Radio.
That's right. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any future episodes. Thanks again for popping by. Hit that like button, and don't forget to leave your comments and questions so we can get right back with you.
We will. Thank you for continuing to make our podcast, Real Estate Coaching Radio, the #1 listened to podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. And let us know what you think about this video. Leave your comments below. Thank you.
We are back, and we're talking about 12 unexpected ways to sell your listing fast. Now, this is relevant information no matter what's going on in the market, but especially during a transitioning market. Now, some of you, most of you hopefully, are starting to focus in on the greatest opportunity in real estate right now, and we believe that is with expired listings. So keep this list handy, because this can be your go-to marketing plan when presenting to those just expired or even those older expired listings. Explain to them that this is what you are going to be able to do, or these are the added arrows in your quiver when you're going to get a home sold. Yes, of course, price, condition, and location matter the most in any market, especially a market like this, but you're going to have to take a skills-based approach to even make listings more attractive and more appealing. And by the way, you can still join Premier Coaching for free. Premier Coaching is a complete real estate coaching system. It's the very thing you need to take your business to the next level. And we've made it very simple and risk-free for all of you to join. Just text the word Premier to 47372. Text the word Premier to 47372, or go to members.timandjulieharris.com, members.timandjulieharris.com. And when you do, you can join Premier Coaching for free. I won't describe to you everything that's in Premier Coaching, but I'll share this with you. When you text Premier to 47372, it'll take you to a website. Scroll down the website and look at all the things that we give you for free when you join today. So make sure you do that. And remember, when texting, message and data rates may apply.
So your mission is to make your listing stand out amongst the competition. Some of you have never had competition on your listings before, but you do now. So why would a buyer choose your listing versus the one that's for sale down the street? Why would a buyer's agent choose yours to show today when there's 5 other choices? Maybe their buyer can only see 2 properties this afternoon. How are you going to be one of them? And why buy your listing when there's new construction with builder incentives right around the corner? So we're going to talk about 12 unexpected ways to sell your listing fast. Now, think of these 12 methods instead of or in addition to price adjustment. Of course, price is always the leader, but do any or all of the following. This can be a week-by-week plan. This could be every other week you add something like this. This can be, again, in addition to a price adjustment as well. So point number 1, your seller could contribute $10,000 towards buyer's closing costs. Now, if it's a less expensive house, maybe that's $5,000. This can help a buyer buy down the interest rate and lock it in at a potentially far lower interest rate than the going mortgage rate. If you don't know how to do that, we're going to talk about that on future podcasts, but you can talk to your mortgage lender about it.
And we're going to be drilling down in the future about now we're not mortgage loan officers and all the rest of it, so don't be confused. But we are going to really drill down and talk about essentially the ramifications of higher interest rates. You know, a lot of you don't know what variable rate interest rates are. You don't know what 5-1, 7-1, 3-1, all these different kinds of ARMs. We're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be explaining to you, frankly, what is the best fit depending on really where the buyer is in their home buying cycle. And, a first-time home buyer, probably maybe 30-year fixed rate's a great mortgage if they're going to hold it long-term as a rental. But we know that most people don't stay in their house for more than 7 or 10 years. So maybe the move is to get the payment as low as possible, knowing full well that they're only going to be there for 5 years kind of thing. So we're going to be talking about that on a future podcast. Point number 2, Julie.
Yes. Okay. Point number 2, seller can pay for 1 year or maybe even 2 years of the buyer's homeowners association dues. Again, paid from the seller's proceeds at closing. If the monthly HOA is $300, then maybe a $3,600 HOA credit for them from the seller would be better than a $5,000 price reduction. It would at least make your listing stand out in the MLS. Perhaps do both instead of a $10,000 reduction.
And that's also worth a great point, because the HOA obviously is going to factor in Julie's example. $300 is going to go towards their ability to qualify for a payment. And if the seller is essentially covering that HOA fee for the first 12 months, that might be, depending on the price point, the very thing it takes for them to qualify for their mortgage. Point number 3, seller to pay 1 year of property taxes for the buyer, paid at closing by the seller, prepaid basically. Similar concept to the previous point, but depends on how much we're talking about. If it's too much, perhaps 6 months tax credit would work. Point number 4, Julie.
Yes, and remember to put all this in the MLS comments so it's obvious why your listing stands out.
And on the kitchen counter when they walk in. You want to make the kitchen counter almost like a little, essentially an opportunity for the buyer really to linger and read about all the ways you've incentivized the house and made that house the no-brainer. That way, if the buyer's choosing between your listing and 6 other listings, you've made the decision very simple for them. All things being, they like the house, the condition, the location. Now you've essentially given them all these other benefits to want to buy your house. You know darn well that they will.
That's right. So point number 4, if the house has condition issues, consider a decorating allowance or allotment to be escrowed at closing by the seller for the buyer. Always get feedback. If a buyer loves the house but just can't live with that carpet, the seller can give a carpet allotment, for example, and get that buyer to actually buy.
Now that's a smart thing to do if the seller doesn't have the cash or really the motivation to improve the property prior to closing, or prior to the house being shown. But for sure, getting the obvious problems fixed for the house prior to putting it on the market will inevitably result in a higher net sale price for the seller. But if they are not in a situation where they have the cash to do those repairs, you can set it aside for the buyer at closing. And also there are different companies that will also help pre-fund or fund the seller for those repairs, and they get paid back at closing. But just do keep these things in mind. Point number 5, Julie.
Point number 5, pay for 2 years of a home warranty for the buyer. We talked about this a little bit on yesterday's podcast. Make sure it's included in the comments. This is pretty inexpensive perk, costing about $450 for 1 year of coverage. In many markets, it's not offered by the seller, and for years it wasn't even asked for by the buyer, lest they lose the bidding war. But now you can do things like this. Make sure you put it in the MLS comments. For example, maybe a buyer is scanning through, deciding what listings to send to their buyer's agent that they'd like to see, and they notice that, well, gosh, it sure would be nice to have a home warranty, especially if they're looking in an older neighborhood.
We talked about this a lot yesterday too, but a home warranty essentially can mitigate risk for the seller while the house is listed, but also for the buyer after they purchase the house. So a home warranty does give the buyer an incentive to actually purchase the house, but also in a listing side of things, when you're competing for the listing in the first place, you explain to the seller how you can use a home warranty to protect them while the house is actually for sale. And by the way, yes, once the inspection happens, if the inspector finds a bunch of niggly things that the home warranty covers, you can have the home warranty cover those things. That in itself will oftentimes win you guys listings that other agents will never have a shot at. Point number 6, Julie.
Point number 6, add a $1,000 commission bonus to a buyer's agent if it's pending by a certain date. Again, mention it in the MLS so they know about it. But when you do this, listing agents, always do a new seller's net sheet when you're adding any of these seller's concessions to the transaction. Make sure the seller knows how their bottom line will be impacted. Many of these concessions will actually cost less than a big price reduction, or make the price reduction smaller when combined with that concession. But on the seller side, it is taking money out of their pocket the same way a price reduction would. So make sure you do a net sheet so they're not surprised at closing.
You can also make it so that the concessions, everything we're talking about, is if the house sells for list price, right? And you could actually write that in the MLS too. So point number 7 is seller does not require inspections to be waived. And that's kind of an interesting little spin on the new market. And we talked about this again a lot on the podcast. Home inspections are definitely going to become a thing again. Home inspections are oftentimes used by buyer's agents as a secondary opportunity to negotiate on the selling price. This isn't what the topic is on today's podcast. We're not suggesting even that that's how a buyer's agent should use a home inspection. A smart listing agent, which all of you will be when you join Premier Coaching, has the house pre-inspected, has that work done prior to the house being for sale. That way, there's no opportunity for a secondary renegotiation. Because oftentimes what happens is the buyer's agent, especially frankly a more experienced one, is going to put the house in contract, maybe even for full list price, in a market where maybe they could have haggled the price down just to get the seller to accept it. And then they're going to take a second bite of the apple as a result of the home inspection. And the result of the home inspection, the work could very well be, or whatever they're saying the value of the work to be done on behalf of the buyers could be significantly more than even a $5,000 price reduction. So do have the house pre-inspected, do have all the work done. We talk about this in great detail in Premier Coaching. Point number 8, Julie.
Point number 8, you can advertise payments instead of price. Now, you're not going to necessarily use a 30-year since that's adjusted up now, but there are ways to advertise payments instead of price. Help buyers know what they can afford by purchasing a house versus renting. Some of you have listings that logically renters who are paying a lot right now would be first-time buyers on those. So make sure that they know what the payment's going to be. It still is probably less than their rent in certain circumstances.
Next point is have your lender create a rate sheet to give away at showings and open houses. And as we suggested yesterday, have the rate sheet attached to the home brochure. Again, be very careful that you're not giving away too much stuff that they're going to then turn away from talking to you and look at. That is a bad salesmanship, frankly. So make it so that you perhaps have the rate sheet, but you're going to ask for their information so you can email it to them. It's a great way to, frankly, get their information. Say, listen, I got a lender now that can put a mortgage on this house with 10% down where your payment's going to be X. Can I email that information to you? But really at this point, what you're hopefully discovering, especially from listening to our podcast, is people are definitely going to start shopping payments more than ever before. Mm-hmm. Payment for every human on the planet, face of planet Earth is always more important than price. Don't wait around for the market to prove that to you. Get ahead of the market and start doing some of the things that we're suggesting to be more competitive, especially on the listing side of things. Point number 10, Julie.
Point number 10, find out if your seller has an assumable mortgage. What's the rate and what are the requirements? Advertise this in your MLS description as well as on your home brochures. Note to self, all FHA, VA, and USDA mortgages are assumable, and some other loans are as well. So find out, because chances are the rate's lower.
Now, if the market gets really bad, we're going to talk more about these, but the gist of an assumable is that assumable with release basically means that the buyer would have to come up with the amount of equity that the seller has in the house, and then they can assume the mortgage that seller has on the property. Now, if things become harder to sell, and we don't think this is going to happen, what you could actually do is have that the equity in the seller's house becomes a second mortgage on the property, and then the buyer assumes the current mortgage. This is getting into the weeds, but just for the sake of explanation, ask the seller if they have an assumable mortgage. They won't know, so then you're going to have to give them the homework assignment to go find out. It's really critical because assumable mortgages are, frankly, if the market really does have a sharp turn downward, and in maybe some markets that'll be the case, assumable mortgages are going to be essentially like the golden ticket.
Yeah.
Point number 11, use 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com on all of your listings to generate leads and possibly sell your listing yourself. Just go to 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com and read more about it. One of the ways that Julie and I were so successful selling over 100 homes our first year and 100 to 200 homes every year thereafter was we did use a IVR system. And really all this is the call capture system. The sign writers go on your signs, obviously, or on your home brochures, and it allows you to capture their phone number. So they call, they listen to the information on the property. You then get a text or an email, and it's letting you know what their phone number is, and you call them right back. Please do refer to 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com. If Julie and I were to get back into real estate, we get this question all the time. But what would we do? Here are the three things. Order 1-800-HOME-HOTLINE.com, work expireds, and centers of influence and past clients. For sure, those three things, and we do them urgently. Point number 12, Julie.
Point number 12, use a home brochure box next to or attached to your for sale sign. There is an art to the home brochure. Of course, highlight all the attributes of your listing using the 800 Home Hotline system, including your email address. In addition to this, there are many, many ways you can utilize the home brochure to make your phone ring. We have done dedicated podcasts about that, and it is included in Premier Coaching.
That's what I was going to say. There's tons of examples of what we're talking about. Your home brochure, again, this just goes back to lazy agent syndrome, right? Most agents aren't using brochure boxes. Brochure boxes and signs in general are one of the greatest inventions ever for the real estate profession. You have a legal mini billboard in the front of every single seller's house. And also, I'm going to suggest this to you, is you need to find out the largest size sign, for sale sign, you can put in someone's yard, because I guarantee you it's probably 2 or 3x the size that you're using. Why is it that everyone uses the same size sign? Because the sign maker who everyone gets their signs from, those are the frames that he's got. That's the pre-made whatever he's got. You want to order a sign that's the largest sign you can get that's legally allowed, because a billboard is, that's in essence what it becomes. When you put an 800 Home Hotline rider on the top, that becomes like something that you would have to pay millions and millions of dollars for. Imagine how much you could charge if, frankly, McDonald's approached you to put a little mini billboard in your front yard. That's what a for sale sign is. Add to this 800 home hotline rider, add to this a home brochure, and you've got something that is a lead generating machine. And as we discussed yesterday, the best buyers are always driving through neighborhoods. So Julie, I've got to get to a coaching call.
Yes. So quick homework, discuss with your seller or sellers who are not selling right away and decide on the new strategy. You guys always ask, what should I say to a seller when their house hasn't sold after 2 weeks? Well, we just told you. Alternatively, start employing some of these items on your new listings right from the get-go.
And remember, text the word Premier to 47372. We are really drilling down on Premier coaching because it's what every single one of you must be doing now. It's a complete A to Z system. It's telling you, some of you are saying, well, I don't know what direction to do. I don't know to do more of this, less of that. I have noticed there's a lot of other coaches and trainers that are starting to copy what Julie and I have been saying for the last 2 years. Welcome to the party. It's better late than never, I suppose. But the reality of it is we're the original source for being a proactive lead generation company focused primarily on sellers. Join Premier Coaching, guys. Don't wait for the market to, really get bad before you realize that you should have had the skill set that you would have had in Premier Coaching. Text the word Premier to 47372 or just simply go to members.timandjulieharris.com. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
Hello, thank you for having watched this video. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
That's right, and don't forget to hit that like button, leave your comments and questions below, and we will get right back with you.
Thank you for watching this video, and remember to watch the next one. You're gonna love that one.